Have you ever gotten a question from a potential buyer on Poshmark and you just weren't really sure how to respond? I know I have, and on days when I've been overwhelmed or stressed out or maybe just not having a good day, I've been known to type out a few sassy replies or so. But as you guys should know, that's not really best practices when you own your own business. Fun story, when I used to work as a cashier at Zara, I would get in trouble all the time because I let customers know when they were being ridiculous, and I was known to like talk back to customers because, unpopular opinion, the customer is not always right and there are such things as dumb questions. That's just the truth. But in the past 7 years, since I've become a parent especially, I've learned how to kind of tame that inner beast, and I've come up with some professional-ish replies to some difficult questions that you might get on Poshmark. So stay tuned, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of the kinds of questions that I get and how to respond. Feel free to take these word for word or reshape them, reframe them depending on the situation, and use them in your own business. So we're gonna start it off pretty easy, but this question I haven't gotten too many of in like the recent couple years, but especially when I first started out on Poshmark, it was really common to ask for trades, and people will just comment and say trade question mark, like not even like, hey, I really like this item, would you be interested in trading? No, it's just the word trade and a question mark. I've seen people make like banners in their closet, so it already discourages people from asking for trades, and this is definitely an option, but I've realized that a lot of people don't read descriptions or don't read the extra posts that you make and will ask anyway. So if that's the case, if somebody asks you if you trade and you don't want to, my response is, hi there, thank you so much for your interest. Unfortunately, I do not trade, but I am open to offers. Usually it just scares them off, or they don't want to even send in an offer, and they just go away. It's not that big of a deal. You can leave it kind of unanswered if you really don't want to, but it's an easy short reply and you don't really have to get too into it. The next question that kind of grinds my gears is when people ask for holds. I have done this in the past. I've held items for people. I've put it as like not for sale so that when they said they could buy it, it would be available. But like maybe 5% of the time people actually pay for it, and I don't know what the reasoning is. Like, I don't know what's the point of asking to hold something if you don't have the intention of buying it, because it just doesn't do anything. But anyway, so when someone asks me to hold an item, all I say is, unfortunately, I do not offer holds because I have this item cross-listed on multiple platforms. Feel free to check back when you are ready to purchase. If you want to send in an offer today, I will consider it. Hopefully, it's still available when you are ready to pay. Another question that I get a lot is people asking if a certain item is going to fit them. Sometimes they'll give me like their height and weight or the typical size that they wear in a certain brand, and then want me to tell them if it will fit similar. And I feel like this is because a lot of buyers are just regular buyers, right? They're not resellers. They're not thinking that we buy these items to resell. They think that we actually own them, so we know how they fit properly. But since that's not the case, I will usually just provide measurements for them or point them into the direction of measurements and tell them to compare those measurements to an item that they already own to see if it will fit. Another thing I do is point them in the direction of the actual brand's size guide, just so that it's kind of clear. I know that things change sizes, especially if they're like made out of elastic because they'll stretch out or whatever, but kind of just pointing them into the direction of measurements is the best way to go. Speaking of measurements, I personally, and I know this is kind of controversial, but I personally don't include measurements in my listings. I provide them upon request. However, if somebody asks for complicated measurements, like, can you wear this and measure from your armpit down to your ankle, or your, I don't know, just like weird, not standard measurements, I usually just ignore them. Or I'll let them know like, hey, I already provided these measurements here. If those don't work for you, I'm sorry, but I prepackaged my items. I really don't want to take it out. That's just me being lazy. You can agree or disagree with that. But usually if somebody asks for really complicated measurements, I just ignore them. Do as I say though, not as I do. You don't have to ignore them. You can definitely pull your stuff out and measure them, but most of the time when people ask for measurements, they don't end up buying. As you guys know, Poshmark is a second-hand market, so another common question that buyers have is how many times was this item washed or how many times was this item worn? I don't know about you guys, but even for items in like my personal closet, I have no idea how many times I wash a certain item or how many times I wear a certain item. Props to you if you were that organized that you have like a chart where you like count how many times you wear a shirt or whatever. But I think this question is kind of funny unless it's like, is this item brand new? That I think is like a more reasonable question. But whenever somebody asks me this, all I say, my response to them is, thank you so much for your interest in this item. Unfortunately, I do not know the answer to this question. However, there are no flaws, it was not altered, there was no changes to the garment. So if you need more close-up photos, I can provide those. But the condition is excellent, new, whatever you want to say. If you want to be real honest, you could tell them that you purchased it secondhand, but that might affect how much they want to pay for an item. Since a lot of my items are consignment, sometimes I do mention that, and I'll just tell them that I'm not sure because I'm selling these items on consignment. They were not owned by me or worn by me. I don't know how many times the previous owner wore those items. Okay, mini break. I just had to stop recording because I heard a customer come in upstairs, even though I'm technically not open right now. My storefront doesn't open until 11. It is 10:45 and I can hear them upstairs talking and saying that they never know when I'm open, even though my hours are posted everywhere and there's hours on the door. This happens a lot because people don't like to read and people don't like to look for information. They just like to show up or get their answers right away. Anyway, going back to some difficult questions on Poshmark. This is very, very common and I see it on listings all the time. But when people start sending offers through comments, I really like to redirect people to, instead of like typing out their offers, just send it through the offer button. Whenever somebody asks if I will take a certain amount in the comments, my response to them is, thank you so much for your interest in this item. Feel free to send an offer through the offer button. I will either accept or counter. One of the reasons why I don't like discussing prices in the comments is because if that person doesn't end up buying and I have the item listed for like $50 and I say that I would sell it to somebody for $30, then other people are gonna come in and try to get it for $30 versus the $50 that I have it listed for, which I could always just relist the item, but I just think it's cleaner. Also, when they send in the offer and you want to accept it, it automatically becomes binding and then they cannot cancel their purchases. Most of these questions have been pretty tame, nothing super crazy, but there's always that one person who comes onto your listing and says, I saw this item listed for X amount. Why are you selling it for this? Or I saw this item listed for $25 cheaper than what you're listing it for. Can you match that price? Whenever somebody tells me that they saw the exact same item for sale somewhere else cheaper, my response is, that is an excellent price. If you can get this item for that price, definitely go buy it from them. I would not skip out on that. Because most of the time, they're lying and they just want you to lower your price. If you already saw it for a good price, why would you ask somebody else to sell it for that price? Anyway, if they try to say that like it's available on the website for a certain amount, or if your price is higher than like the retail price of the item, I'll say something along the lines of, yes, that is the retail price. However, this item is sold out in this size online and it is pretty difficult to come buy it online. So feel free to send an offer, but after comparing with other sold listings of this exact item, I'm staying firm at this market price. And if they don't want to buy, then they don't want to buy. That's not your ideal customer. That's not who we want shopping in your closet. Most people just want to be difficult because they want to be difficult and they don't really have the intentions to shop. Of course, I'm not saying that every single question that is asked on Poshmark is difficult or that they're being a difficult customer, but there are people who like to push the boundaries, like to push your buttons and see how far they can get or what kind of deal they can get. If you don't think you're going to be able to remember all of these responses, one quick tip that I like to use is creating shortcuts in my phone so that I can have the response already typed out and saved, and then I can just do a little shortcut and it will automatically auto-populate that whole statement. I do this a lot on Poshmark just to save time. So especially when you're in the heat of the moment and somebody's comment or somebody's question just ends up being like the last straw on one of your difficult days and you just need to respond, you can do it really quick, press send, and don't let your emotions control how you can negatively affect the sale. Anyway, that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you guys have other answers to difficult questions that you guys like to use, leave them in the comments so we can all share and learn more ways to remain professional when this job can get a little bit testy. If you guys made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of the support and all of the views. If you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and stay tuned for some more reselling related content. All right, you guys, I'll see you next time. Bye!